So if you're in the market for a Ferrari 458 Speciale or just want to know more about this model, you're in the right place. I mean, this car is so many people's favorite modern Ferrari, and it's already considered to be one of the all-time greats. I mean, the way it looks, the way it sounds, the way it drives, Ferrari just got it so right with the Speciale. So today we're going to take a detailed look at sort of all the different things you should be looking out for when you're considering buying one of these, the different options you should be looking at, the different color combinations and stripes and how that might impact the value. We'll discuss the market, how it's evolved over time, and if you stick around to the end of the video, we're also going to discuss the Speciale Aperta, and we've got a really special example to show you. Just before we get into the video, I just want to give a little heads up to our sister company, Elev8 Finance. If you're looking to buy a prestige car on finance or possibly looking to refinance your existing car, give these guys a call or go through their website. They'll give you very impartial advice and likely get you a better deal than what you've been offered elsewhere. We'll leave their contact details in the description below. So just quickly, for those that don't know much about the Speciale, I'll just give you a very brief history. So in 2010, Ferrari brought out a model called the 458 Italia. That basically carried on the tradition of Ferrari having a two-seater rear-wheel drive mid-engine sports car in their lineup. It's pretty much always been their most popular model, and the 458 Italia was no different. They followed that up with a Spider variant, the 458 Spider, which featured a metal folding electric roof. But the one we really were all waiting for was the lightweight, track-focused, more hardcore variant, and that was called the 458 Speciale. That car basically followed in the footsteps of the 430 Scuderia and the 360 Challenge Stradale, which basically had a similar ethos from Ferrari's past models. Like those cars, it wasn't actually a limited number car. The Speciale was built in a limited time period between 2014 and 2016. We believe there's between sort of 2,000 and 3,000 cars worldwide, but for UK, we reckon there are about 250 UK supplied cars. So today I'm mainly going to be talking about the Speciale coupes, but a lot of what I'm going to say does apply to the Aperta as well, but I will talk more specifically about the Aperta at the end of the video. Right, so if you're just starting your journey to buy a 458 Speciale, one of the first things you're going to want to do is decide on the color and the stripe. So, obvious color to go for is red, but there are many variations of color and stripe you can go for on the Speciale. Not quite as many as there are on the 488 Pista, which there are lots more sort of unique colors and combinations you'll see. But on the Speciale, yes, you can go for red. Rosso Corsa is the no-cost option, the famous red that many people do go for. You know, it's not just famous for Ferrari. Rosso Corsa is actually the national auto racing color for Italy, so it definitely has that desirability today. So there are many different types of red too. This is one of them. This is called Rosso Formula 1 2007. You'll see it's a slightly more sort of golden flake to it. It's definitely lighter, it's more metallic, and it does cost £15,000 from factory. So it doesn't carry maybe all of that value over as a used car, but it definitely is a bit more special, a bit more valuable, and some people will find that a more desirable spec. So the same could be said for Rosso Fuoco. That translates to fire red. We've actually got a 488 Pista in Rosso Fuoco just over there. That's slightly darker, very metallic, but these paints are just a little bit more special. There are also lots of other reds. You've got the likes of Rosso Scuderia, which is slightly lighter and brighter. You have darker reds like Rosso Fiorano, Rosso Maranello, and one you might have heard of is called Rosso Dino. James May from Top Gear famously bought a Speciale in Rosso Dino. That's more of a sort of almost orange. Look, the further you get away from the traditional reds, the more of an acquired taste they become. So make sure you really do like that color if you're going to go for something like that. So whilst I'd say that red is probably the best color for resale, many of us don't want a red Ferrari today. So you're going to be looking at the likes of white, silver, grey, black. This car here is Bianco Avus. So this is the flat white. It's the brightest, the cleanest of the whites. They also do Bianco Fuji and Bianco Italia, which are pearlescent paints. They also cost £15,000 from new. They are slightly off-white, but obviously a deeper, probably a more desirable paint, but it's not for everyone. They're also, if you are doing any respraying to panels for whatever reason, they're very hard to match. So just bear that in mind. So other colors we do come across is the metallic black, Nero Daytona. So if you want something a little bit stealthier, black's obviously the one to go for, but just bear in mind you don't get the contrast of the nice carbon extras. You don't see the lines of the car just as much. A nice color to go for is Grigio Silverstone. That's probably the most popular gray. That way you obviously get a slightly more understated spec. So there's also the lighter grey, the Grigio Titania. We sold one of those recently. There are a few more greys, some historical paints, but personally I don't tend to see much difference in value between the sort of whites, greys and the blacks. They're all pretty safe colours and you can normally find one on the market. If you do want something a little bit more unique, you might go for one of the yellows. Giallo Triplo Strato is one of them. The pista actually in front of me is that colour. We have had one in Tour de France blue, which looked amazing. There are a few other shades of blue that I've seen. If you want something really different though, there's not that many around, so if your heart's set on getting a really unique colour, you might be waiting a pretty long time to find one. You're not going to want to wrap the car either because of the stripe. Right, so let's discuss the stripe. So for most Speciale buyers, a stripe is an absolute must, but there's definitely a market for people that just don't want a stripe on their car. You know, we've sold quite a few cars with no stripe. What I would say is it does help to get a contrast roof. So some of the grey cars we've had have a contrast roof. It definitely, without having a stripe, gives the car a slightly less fussy, cleaner look. And that of course does appeal to some people. If you do get the roof in the same colour as the body, can tend to look a little bit plain. You might be mistaken for just a 458 Italia, but maybe that actually appeals to some people. For me, I think the stripe really makes the car, and I think without the stripe, you know, I would tend to devalue cars without a stripe. But there are basically two main variations of stripe. This is the NART stripe. This is in the traditional North American racing team colours, blue and white, but you can also get, like our white car, a special NART stripe with different colours. So that's obviously got the black and gold. I think that goes really well on a white car, especially with the gold wheels. But really for me, the blue and the white NART stripe, that's the one that's going to be how the Speciale is remembered in the future. It's probably going to be the one, especially on a red car, is going to be the one that collectors want, and I think that is just the signature combo for the Speciale. Okay, so of course there is always a market though for something that's a little bit different, a little bit unique, but what I would say, it just needs to look right. And I know a lot of that is down to personal taste. I think this looks just right on the white car, the black and the gold, whereas I wouldn't say on a grey car, the blue and the white NART stripe, I don't think that looks great on a grey car, whereas a black and white stripe on a grey car does look good. But look, we've, you know, although this is just my personal opinion, you know, we at Romans have sold between 40 and 50 Speciali, so we'd have a pretty good idea of what does sell and what struggles to sell. You know, we did actually have a white car with a blue and white NART stripe. Obviously that means you can't see the white, so you just get a blue thin line going down the middle of the car, and that just looked a bit naff, and that struggled to sell. But the other stripe that you will see very often is, Ferrari call it racing livery, where you basically get the two parallel stripes and the middle is just in the body color. This works really well. We've had plenty of cars with that stripe. Costs the same as the NART stripe as well, but it does just give the car a slightly more refined look, I think. You know, it's such a pretty car, the 458, so it does work very well having that racing livery. You'll normally see it in black. We've had cars with grey stripes, we've had cars with gold stripes, and it does always look very good. So just a couple more things I want to mention on the stripe. Do not be fooled by a sticker stripe. Although it's probably more acceptable on the 430 Scuderia and 360 Challenge Stradale, on the Speciale, a sticker stripe is not the done thing. So the way of telling this is just by rubbing your hand over the stripe. You should not feel anything. The stripe is painted under the lacquer, so it is totally seamless. If you feel a ridge, it's probably going to be a sticker, or it could be really bad paintwork if someone's tried to repaint the stripe. So avoid that. If you're buying a car without a stripe, don't put a sticker on. Embrace the fact it doesn't have a stripe, or just find one with a stripe. So one more thing is look for a car ideally with paint protection film. Although it's not an essential, this car doesn't have it, but it is a delivery mileage car, whereas our white car does have the front end filmed over. The benefit of paint protection film is mainly that you don't get stone chips in the stripe, because if you try and respray a bonnet with a stripe, it's very expensive and difficult to do. So try and find a car with paint protection film to just protect that stripe. Okay, so once you've chosen the color and the stripe, or no stripe, you're probably going to want to look next at what carbon fiber options the car has. So unlike the 488 Pista, where you got a lot of carbon as standard, on the Speciale, you didn't get any exterior carbon fiber as standard, so you had to get it spec'd. So the options you can get, so down here you have this front spoiler in carbon, which also has these little aero flaps, which are also in carbon. That's a £2,500 option from new. Quite nice to have that. The ones I do really like are these. They're called the front air vents, or louvers as some people call them. Without those, I mean, they were only a £1,500 option. I'm surprised how many Speciales don't have them. I think it just adds so much to the look of the car, especially on a brighter color. You can get carbon fiber wheel caps. Both our cars have that. You might see a few cars with carbon fiber wing badges and carbon fiber wing mirrors. You couldn't spec that from factory, so those will be actually aftermarket parts. Down here, I think this is the next one I'd always look out for on Speciales, is having these. Some people call them the side nolders or the side sill fins. About a £2,500 option from new. They just look super cool and really contrast nicely on a lighter car. You can actually spec the full side sills in carbon. You very, very rarely see that. I think it was about a £5,600 option, but you just lose all the contrast of the fin. So I think that's one to leave out. Onto the rear of the car. This car has got the rear diffuser in carbon fiber. Again, I think it's about a £5,500 option from new. Big piece, and you get all these cool fins in carbon fiber. But I mean, how often are you going to be looking that low in the car? I don't think it's an essential, that one. But you will be looking in here very often. Carbon fiber engine bay. So as standard, you actually get the actual carbon fiber engine covers, but the whole surround in carbon fiber is an option. I think it's £4,500 option. On this car, you'll notice all the signatures. So those signatures are under the lacquer, and they're all the people that worked on the car back at the Ferrari factory. Quite a bespoke and unique thing for this car. You won't see that very often. So just to summarize on carbon fiber parts, because I know not everyone gets the appeal. What I would say, if you look at the 488 Pista today, almost every car is fully spec'd with carbon fiber. That's because everyone realized after the Speciale just how much carbon fiber adds to the desirability and value of the car. Carbon fiber not only looks very cool, it's also lighter, it's more durable, it's much more expensive to produce. So on a special car like this, that's what people want. The good news is a lot of the carbon fiber parts can be bought aftermarket from Ferrari. They're a lot more expensive than they were from factory, but you can spec things like these. Obviously, you'd much rather a car that had it all from factory, but you know, it is a good way of just adding a bit of value and a bit of desirability of the car. Okay, so just briefly touch on the wheels, because there's very little variation you get. There's only one type of wheel for the Speciale Coupe. There is a different type of wheel for the Aperta, which I will show you, but really it's down to what color you want. See, this had them painted in gold from factory. The red car had them painted in matte black. Obviously you can get silver, grey, whatever really floats your boat. Obviously if you don't like the colour of the wheels, you can change. It's very easy to respray wheels into a different colour. One thing you wouldn't really want to get into respraying is the brake calipers. Obviously these have got them in gloss black, but you'll see red, yellow. Look, brake calipers shouldn't really influence your decision, I wouldn't say. Just on the brakes, ceramic brakes come as standard, so unless the car's had really heavy track use, you're probably not going to need to even look at changing the ceramic brakes whilst, during your ownership. Okay, so onto the interior. So unlike the exterior, you do get lots of carbon fiber as standard on the Speciale. So you get the carbon fiber driving zone with the LED steering wheel, you get carbon fiber dashboards, carbon fiber central bridge, you get carbon fiber door panels, the little kick plates here, and you get carbon fiber racing seats. You're not going to see full electric seats on a Speciale. Where you will get variation is in the actual style and the materials used on the seats and throughout. So for me, I think because the Speciale is a track focused car, although not everyone's going to use it on a track, Alcantara, it's important to have, I think, some element of Alcantara on the car. It's grippier, it's lighter material, it just keeps you more rooted into the seat. So always good to have Alcantara, and it's nice and soft. So what you will see also is this 3D fabric through the middle. That's quite common on Speciales. I actually really like it on this car in this sort of light grey. I think it's called Grigio Chiaro, whereas on the red car you'll see it in red. For me, my favourite style of seats is actually the full Alcantara when you get we've had a few cars with it where you get the central racing stripe through the seat and all this lovely perforation and details on the seats. The one thing we tend to struggle with is Speciales with full leather interior. Full leather, some people might like it, but I think for resale, you should probably avoid it and just go with either this or the more full Alcantara seats. Okay, so whilst the 458 Speciale I know is meant to be a track focused car, most Speciales are probably never going to see a track in their life. The two cars we've got here are definitely set up more for road use, but if you do want more of a track car and a track setup, there are a number of options to look out for. One of the main ones is the 4-point harnesses. So from new, you had to choose between harnesses and seat belts. Obviously harnesses give you that strapped in special race car feel, more of a sense of occasion, but if you're going to use it for road use, you're going to want seat belts. You just get a lot more freedom and comfort. Other track friendly options, you can get a fire extinguisher. This car actually has that. That's really just for emergencies. You can also get a road legal roll bar, which we've had in a couple of examples before. You can also get Ferrari telemetry, where you can do all sorts of data capture and look at your lap times and things like that. And then you can finally get the track camera as well, so you can record yourself driving, record your laps, and really get that more track orientated setup. Okay, just a few more options to look out for, especially if you're looking for a more sort of road-friendly setup. So, sat-nav and Bluetooth, that was an extra on the Speciale. We have had a couple of cars without them. Sat-nav, probably not that important. Most people use their phones these days, but Bluetooth is something you're going to want to use if you're using the car regularly. Other things, parking sensors, obviously useful for parking. You'll see the little dots in the front and the rear. Also, both these cars have rear camera, obviously extra convenient. Advanced front lighting system. If you're going to be driving at night, these are safer. You get much more enhanced lighting driving at night. Cruise control is another little thing. Some people like it, most people won't bother. A big one that's a bit of a topic of contention is the suspension lift. Now, these days suspension lift has become more and more important. Back when the 458 first came out in 2010, I think it was the very first Ferrari to feature this, and it just wasn't seen as that important. On 458s, they're not that low. We did a little test earlier where we measured the ground clearance between the Speciale, compared it with the Pista, the SVJs and the GT3s. The Speciale has the most amount of ground clearance out of all of those cars by quite a way, and it has a plastic lip underneath, so if you do catch it, it's just going to graze a bit of plastic, whereas something like the Pista, if you do graze it, you're going to actually graze the paintwork. So on the Speciale, I find it's a 50-50 as to whether cars have them. I don't think it should be a deal breaker unless you've got very steep drive or lots of speed bumps around you. Okay, so we've pretty much got you covered with regards to the spec, the stripe, the color, and the different options you want to look for. But we wanted to bring you down to the BHP stable, which is a storage place. This is where we keep our off-market cars. It's actually owned and run by ex-Formula One racing driver Max Chilton, who's a good friend and customer of Romans. But yes, this is where we keep our Speciale Aperta. You might notice it's very, very similar to our coupe. That's because it was built as a matching pair, spec to look very, very similar, but there are notable differences. Good thing about these cars is they're both delivery mileage cars. So for an investor or a collector, these are an incredibly special duo. So yes, onto the Aperta. So there are some differences with the coupe, other than the obvious one with the roof off. If you look closely at the stripe, not only will you see it's actually inverted, so you have the white through the middle and the blue on the outer, but you'll also see this pinstripe. And that's not just this car, all the Apertas, or most of them at least, have that pinstripe. It's a distinguishing feature, which is what makes the Aperta different. Ferrari would not let you spec this stripe at the coupe, at the factory. And that stripe obviously goes onto the roof when the roof is up. So the stripe just gradually gets wider and actually goes to the whole full width of the car, which just gives you so much more road presence from the back. You will also notice on the Aperta you get this badging, 458 Speciale A. That is actually the official name of the model. It's the A standing for Aperta, which means open in Italian. So you also get these little carbon fiber B pillars. That's an option on the Aperta. Obviously you can't get that on the coupe. But the wheels is the other big notable change. So these wheels are totally unique to the Aperta, totally different design. They have this sort of diamond cut finish. I think they actually give the car a lot more road presence. I really like those. But look, the main reason perhaps for some people why you buy the Aperta is that open top driving experience, to hear that engine in all its glory. But for many people, another reason you buy the Aperta is for its rarity. Right, so we want to talk about some of the prices and the market on these two cars. One of the things you'll notice fairly quickly is just how much more the Aperta costs than the Speciale Coupe today. That is because, as I was saying, is its rarity. So there were 499 of these built worldwide, and that is a proper limited number, fixed amount, and it's, you know, one of the rarest modern Ferraris today. We believe about 50 of those were UK supplied cars. But then you have to bear in mind there were a number of left-hand drive cars imported into the UK at the time. So there's, you know, slightly fluctuating numbers of cars that are actually here in the UK. Obviously our preference is always for right-hand drive cars. You know, we're in the UK. Having a right-hand drive car is not only safer to drive and easier to use, it's also a lot rarer. Obviously, left-hand drive market is much bigger globally, which makes the right-hand drive cars rarer and more valuable. So that's why they hold a premium. So there's quite a lot of price disparity between left-hand drive cars and right-hand drive cars. Between sort of 40 and 50,000 pounds, I would say, on the coupes, more like 100,000 pounds difference on the Apertas. But look, how much do these cars actually cost today, and how much do they cost new? Okay, so the Speciale Coupe, the base price of that car was £208,000. When you add a load of options, you're probably looking at more like 230 to 250, whereas the Aperta was only cost £20,000 more than the coupe. Obviously the prices of these now has just skyrocketed. So if we rewind back to sort of 2014 when they first came out, we actually had the very first Speciale on the market in the UK. I think we gave like £10,000 over list for it, sold it for something like £30,000, and at the time people were talking like that was a big premium. So obviously times have changed, although they're just starting to change back, I think. But yeah, if you compare that to the Aperta, I mean, I think we had the very first Aperta for sale in the UK. We gave the first owner, I think, around £200,000 over list. So they were about 500 grand. So it's just mind-boggling numbers, if you ask me, but you know, that turned out to actually be quite cheap back then, because they actually went up in value. So they were 500, and then they were 600, 650, and I know some cars actually sold for over £700,000, which is just madness, really. The Speciale Coupes, they were sort of 250. We actually struggled to sell them in the beginning because you could still order one from new and spec it to your own taste. So it took a while for them to really go up, but when they did, the whole market sort of went crazy in sort of 2015, 2016. So they went from 250 to 300 to 350, and then there were cars up for £400,000. Obviously, many things changed in the world. We had Brexit, we had global economy crisis, we had general elections, and then we've had a pandemic. So the cars have come back down quite a lot over the last couple of years. And today, for a Speciale coupe, the entry-level price is probably around £250,000. That's going to get you an average spec, average miles car. If you want a low mileage car, high spec, probably looking at more like 260, 270, 280 maybe. For a really special car, delivery mileage, special paints, you're probably going to be paying over £300,000 for it. The Aperta, these today, somewhere between probably £500,000 and £600,000. You might find an average car, high mileage for under 500, and again, maybe over 600 for a delivery mileage, really, really special car. So yeah, they've really sort of come back to reality, and I think now is probably a really good time to buy. You have to bear in mind, this is the last of the naturally aspirated V8 engines. That is such an important factor for the purists and the enthusiasts. They don't make cars like this anymore. They've gone to turbocharged. The 488 Pista is turbocharged, and you can tell that these cars are still over list today. The Pista's been, 1 or 2 years out now, and they are already under list. The Speciales will be worth more in the future than the 488 Pista, I believe. So that's pretty much sums up these cars in the values. So let's just talk a little bit about the running costs and how you're going to maintain them. Okay, so just finally, we just want to touch on the sort of running costs and the maintenance and reliability of these cars. And it's actually one of the best things about the Speciale is they don't cost a lot to run. So most cars were delivered sort of 2014, 2015, and they all came with a 4-year Ferrari warranty. That's in the UK. So the warranties have probably run out now, but it's very easy to extend them. If the warranty has run out, it just needs to go for an inspection at a Ferrari service place. You pay, I think, just over £3,000 for a 12-month extended warranty. It does have to pass an inspection. And one of the best things is the warranty stays on the car. So it's not, you don't have to sell it privately or this, so it stays on the car. They also come with a 7-year service plan. So these cars have probably got 1 or 2 services left on that plan, but even outside of the service plan, the services are only about £1,000 a year, so not a lot on cars of this value. With regards to reliability, these cars don't have any known common issues. Obviously the 458 came out in 2010, so by the time these came out, Ferrari had pretty much ironed out a lot of the issues. So probably one of the only things you need to do is to make sure, if you're not driving the car and you're leaving it in storage or you're leaving it sat at home, just keep the car on trickle charge, because that is where they can run into some issues. If you don't have the car on charge, you can start to get a few electrical issues. So just make sure you keep them on trickle charge. And other than that, you're not really going to get many issues. You might get the odd glitch here and there. It's a 300 or 400 grand Ferrari, but other than that, you're going to be pretty happy there. Okay, so that's it. Hopefully there's lots of useful information for you there, especially if you're in the market to buy one of these. We're always looking to buy them, so if you're looking to sell one, please do get in touch. But yeah, that's all we've got time for. Thank you to Max for letting us film in the BHP stable. Please do give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. It does help the video to get seen by more people. But hopefully we'll have another video for you very soon.